So welcome, Vicci, to these set of interviews. Can we just start by, I know you're CEO of Inclusion Gloucestershire. Can you just tell us a little bit about what Inclusion Gloucestershire is and what it does?
Of course, Louise. So, Inclusion Gloucestershire is a charity, and we're also a user-led organisation, which means we're run by disabled people for disabled people. And our purpose is to give disabled people a really strong voice and encourage and ensure that society is including disabled people every day and in every way. So we do that through running a range of services. We're commissioned to deliver specific contracts and projects, and we're always co-producing and engaging with disabled people around all of our work.
All right, it's fantastic that it's for and by. It's really great that you're able to do that.
But I bet a lot of people would be looking at you and thinking, ooh, Vicci is really young actually to be running a large organisation like this. So I'm going to take you back to when you first went to university. And I know you got straight A's and went to Bath University. And I remember you telling me that you were seeing yourself as the next female Alan Sugar.
Yeah.
But then when you went to university, that experience of being on a business studies course with a whole bunch of people and how that was taught and so on, tell us a little bit about the experience that was and maybe how it changed you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to university as an 18-year-old with these ideas that I'd be a really successful businesswoman, the next Alan Sugar, as you said. And I loved the content of my degree, but I saw a ruthless and sometimes quite deceitful side, sometimes to my peers on the course, and sometimes it was just certain elements of business that didn't quite sit comfortably with me. Some of the ideas around pursuing profit at any cost. Um, and the university course was great because we could choose some modules. So I was very attracted to modules like corporate social responsibility and how to really support your team to achieve the best that they can do.
Mm.
I realised during the course of my degree, it was a 4-year degree with 2 placements, that actually the business world perhaps wasn't the world for me, and that I needed to be working in a sector that I was really passionate about. So I was lucky enough on one of my placements to work with a charity, a local charity, and I realised then that running a charity, it's a lot like running a business. You need to put the money in, you need to manage the contracts, ensure you're delivering to your KPIs, ensure your staff are properly managed and supported. But it's just much more meaningful. And that experience made me realise how I wanted my career to go.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't that sort of pursuit of profit besides all else, and that kind of it just didn't sit well.
No, and I think it takes all sorts, and the world needs businesses and people who are very profit minded. But it wasn't for me.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, you can do more and more businesses now are realizing you have to do both, of course. But you had when you came to the end of your course, you had quite a hard experience, didn't you? You know, when you were applying for jobs, it was.
Yeah, absolutely, Louise. And I think that was the first time in my life that I realised that my disability could be a real barrier in getting to where I wanted to be. Up until then, it was always the case that if I set my mind on doing something, I would do it. But suddenly, when I was starting to go to interviews for graduate jobs, I realised that in some cases, no matter how hard I tried, employers just were not interested in employing a disabled individual. And I would apply for lots and lots of jobs in my final semester of university. And nearly always I would be invited to interview. And I went all over the country to interviews. I had probably about 30 or 40. And often it was before I'd even opened my mouth. When I walked into the room, I could see the interview panel look at me and make up their mind that they, I wouldn't fit in their organisation, and the answer was always that no, I hadn't been successful.
The statistics are really horrifying when you hear that 65% of companies say they're unlikely to employ someone who has a disability. There's a real misconception, isn't there, about someone, putting everybody with a disability into one group, and I know you're really working hard to break through that. Tell us a little bit about your leadership skills, or your leadership style, because it's been honed from those experiences you had and who you are as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Inclusion Gloucestershire, we have about 50 staff, and the majority of them have lived experience of a disability, be that physical disability, learning disability, or long-term mental ill health. And I think leadership style really shapes a whole organisation and its culture. So when I was at university, I learned a lot about the type of leader that I didn't want to be. So I thought, I didn't want to be someone who trampled on everybody else to get to the top. I didn't want that really competitive style, because I feel strongly that within an organisation, if you're very clear about your values and goals with your team, you should all be working to the same final goals. So you're very much working as a team, and you should be raising each other up rather than competing and trampling on each other. And the same goes with partnership working as well. In the charity sector, there's a lot of partnership working, and rather than all competing, I believe it's much more efficient to work together, so you're not duplicating, you're not trying to do what someone else is already doing, but you're pooling your resources and using them as effectively as possible.
That's really interesting. I think a lot of companies are realizing that they've got to work much more collaboratively than they have done in the past, just particularly over these last months. And how has your style, do you think, served you in these difficult months with COVID-19?
I think that these last few months have certainly been a huge challenge. But I think my style of kind of collaborative working has helped our team pull together. I've been so proud of our staff team who have just gone above and beyond, and I know they must be exhausted. But we constantly talk with each other we have an environment of high support and high challenge. So we're constantly supporting each other, checking in. And I really believe in investing time in people, and that pays dividends. And we can supportively and constructively challenge so that we can develop people to be the very best that they can be. And I think that's really important. So that's enabled us as a team to be very adaptive and responsive, change the ways we needed to work as a result of COVID, and kind of keep delivering our contracts, keep serving the people who we exist to serve, and just somehow make it through the last few months.
Yeah. How do you think it's looking for, the future for you? I know a lot of people are worried about, funding and...
Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the charity sector, there are very legitimate concerns about funding, and these are long-term concerns. So I think the economy will take a long time to fully recover, and whenever the economy takes a hit, local government and local authority will be looking at the contracts that they might normally commission to charities and organisations like us, and whether they can continue to do so, whether they need to reduce their value. So it is a really uncertain time, but for our organisation, I'm determined to seize the opportunities that do exist. So we've started doing some new work as a result of COVID, doing things like creating a resource hub of accessible information about the pandemic and lockdown on our website. And we've also just started a new project working with BAMI communities, Black and ethnic minority groups, to assess the impact of COVID and lockdown on them. So I think there are new and exciting opportunities, and especially as well around the way that we work, which I think will change permanently. And we're also really keen to diversify our income streams. So where some areas of income, like local authority contracts, might be in doubt, we just need to be working really hard to secure other income and do more income generating work so that we're more financially independent.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's very uplifting to hear you talking about the opportunities. I think it's nice now because I think there's been such a lot of pressure on people, and then having got through that pressure, now people are just beginning to sort of see the opportunity and think ahead, really. I know part of what you do is about advocacy and, giving people a voice that might not normally have a voice. Can you tell us just a little bit about that work as well?
Absolutely. So we are really keen to support people to develop their own voice, which is known as self-advocacy. So we do this throughout all of our projects, really, but we've just launched a new volunteering and advocacy service, which is dedicated to advocacy. So there's a mix of helping people to find their own voice, which is brilliant because that's a sustainable form of advocacy. Once you've developed that confidence and skills, that will stay with you for life. So you're not reliant on an organisation or a professional to help you to advocate for yourself. But for some people, they will need the support of another advocate. So we also provide that more traditional form of advocacy. and we deliver it through both group and one-to-one methods. And our advocacy is community-based advocacy, so not statutory advocacy, which is delivered by other partners in Gloucestershire, but very much around working in a person-centred way to identify someone's goals and ambitions and then work alongside them to achieve them.
And that's really, so there's a lot in there about building confidence in the individual, really, particularly when there's, you know, you can face it with just thinking about your recruitment experience, where you can face a world that is very difficult for you at times, and people's preconceptions sometimes go against you and really test you. Do you think, Vicci, that landscape is changing? Is it getting better?
Oh, good question. I think when you take a step back and look at it from a longer term perspective, you can see change. There's a generational shift, I think. So we no longer see disabled people as people who we need to hide away, as in the case 50 years ago. And we're moving away from the stance that disabled people need to be protected and sheltered. And we are really keen on what we call positive risk taking and allowing someone, if they have capacity, as many disabled people do, to make their own choices. And they might sometimes be unwise choices, as anyone might make. They might sometimes choose to drink a little bit more than my daily allowance at the weekend. But we're all allowed to make these unwise choices. So I think there's been a bit of a generational shift, and I really hope that continues. But in terms of the more immediate path, I do think that we're at a really interesting tipping point. And I think in some ways we've gone slightly backwards from where we were 10 years ago, when there was a lot more support for disabled people's organisations, and that support was financial. I also think the Paralympics provided a great opportunity that was seized to kind of showcase the amazing skills of disabled people. But unfortunately, that legacy hasn't really continued. So if anything, in the last 10 years, we've not as progressed as much as we did. And it'll be very interesting to see what the impact of COVID and the economic impact is, because we know disabled people are being disproportionately affected, which is a real concern.
Yeah. So the need for organisations like yours at the moment is it's even more important than it was prior to the situation we're in just now.
Yeah, we're seeing demand for our services, and some of the complexity of the cases that we're dealing with just really increase.
Wow. It's amazing work that you do. And you are, you know, you are very young to be a CEO. You know your stuff so well. It's just amazing. And, you know, a lot of people actually I've talked to lately are getting to the end of the year, and they're a bit worn down by it all, and they're kind of in in a little bit of a place where they just don't know when is this going to end. Their energy's been used up, you know. And talking to you is so lovely because you understand what's difficult about the situation at the moment, but you also can see the opportunity, and you're really actively doing things to take your organization to the next stage. You're extremely resilient, Vicci. Is there anything you think that gives you that? What makes you so resilient?
Well, I think my personal experience of disability has definitely shaped who I am. And one of those things has been that it's given me resilience. And so when I was younger, I have a progressive condition, and throughout my teens, it progressed and was quite rapidly taking away my independence and ability to function. And when I was 16, I made the decision and took the opportunity to have quite major brain surgery. And at the time, it was fairly new for my condition, so there were some risks. And I think just going through that experience as a 16-year-old, deciding to have that surgery and take those risks, and weighing up what was preferable, going for the surgery, which I was told would more than likely leave me with some level of brain damage, or facing this very uncertain future with a progressive disability. It gives you a level of maturity, I think, and resilience that you can then draw upon in later life. So when I was at university, I used to drive my course mates and my friends mad because I had a very different perspective. So when they were all, you know, it was the end of the world because their boyfriend of 6 months had dumped them, couldn't cope with the number of deadlines they had, and they were saying, that's it, we're going to give it all up, we can't carry on. I was saying, oh, for goodness sake, but no one's going to die, are they? Because I think when you've quite literally faced your own mortality at quite a young age, that's what things boil down to. You think, well, is anyone going to get hurt or die? No, so we're all going to be okay. So I think I've drawn on that, and this year has been really challenging. But I think that kind of optimism and resilience has kept us going. And I just wish that employers, when they see a disabled person walk into the room or wheel into the room, they don't see someone who they instantly think won't fit in or will be a risk. They see someone who brings with them such determination or resilience or maturity, and they see those strengths rather than any perceived weaknesses.
Oh, that is such a brilliant lesson. Every recruitment person should hear that, I think. Vicci, thank you so much. You're a real lesson to us all. It's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Louise. You too.